ladies, congratulations on See You Then.
Thank you so much.
So how does it feel that this film is being showcased at the South by Southwest this year?
Oh, it's for me, it's an absolute dream. I've always hoped to have a film that I directed at South by Southwest. And actually, the producer for the film and the production company I worked with, I actually met at South by Southwest in 2015. So it's just sort of like coming back home. And it's Lynn's third year in a row. Is that right?
Yes, it's true.
It's amazing.
I know Lynn's a fixture at South by Southwest if it's a third year in a row by now.
Absolutely.
So Marie, tell us where the original story came from. What sparked you to come up with this story?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it was always a dream of mine to direct a feature ever since I was in school. But as usual, like everything that I wrote was so budgetarily out of control that there's no way for a first-time filmmaker, much less someone who is Asian American and someone who's trans, to be able to make a first feature. So I became really interested in telling a chamber piece story between two characters. And at the time, I was going through a lot of reflecting on the choices I'd made in my life and sort of my work-life balance and what was going on in my feelings of being a woman and femininity and womanhood and motherhood. And all those things sort of coalesced into the script, and it became a form of art therapy. And then, like all great things, when you get to a certain point in the draft, this character starts to come to life and you start to fall in love with them, you know? And then you feel really bad when you ruin their lives, but it's, you know, necessary for art.
Well, let me start with Lynn first, and then we'll get to Pooya. Lynn, you have done so many indie films throughout your entire career. Why did you want to do something like See You Then? What makes this film so special compared to the others?
I mean, yes, indie film is something that I fell deeply, madly in love with in the 90s when indie films were really indie films. And I feel like whenever I have the opportunity to work on something like this project, where I see that it's not only a first-time filmmaker, but it's their story, I'm immediately drawn to it. I know that this was such a personal film for Mari, but also just selfishly, I felt like the role was incredible. And I also felt like just the format itself, you know, one of the first movies that made me fall in love with indie filmmaking was Richard Linklater's Before Sunrise. I did not know movies could be made like that, where just two people talking. And so I remember when I got the script, I was like, whoa, like this is Before Sunrise, has a trans writer director, like Asian American, like it just ticked all the boxes. And at that point I was just like, I'll do it for free, which is something your agents never want to hear. But you know, I felt like I was so drawn to it, and I really fought for this role. You know, I really wanted to land this, and I knew that if I didn't, that Mari would choose somebody who would serve the story. But to me, the most important thing ever was the story. And so when I did get cast, I made that my priority.
Absolutely. Pooya, I've just binged a TV show called Big Dogs, recognizing you on that show. But what brought you on to this this movie yourself for See You Then?
An email 2 years ago, 2 and something years ago, from a casting director in LA saying, I'm so-and-so, I want to offer you a role on behalf of Mari Walker. Attached is a personal letter from Mari Walker as to why she wants you to be in the film. And Mari had said that she had seen me in a short film that I had done many years ago at a festival, and she had really liked the work that I'd done there. And my first response was, this has to be a joke. This doesn't happen. It definitely doesn't happen to me. So I sent it to my agents and I'm like, I don't know. I think this is somebody pulling a prank, but check in. And next day they're like, no, this is not a prank. This is legit. There's this project happening in LA. And I read the script twice. I felt very strongly connected to it. I felt the joy of the characters, the pain of the characters, the devastation. And I spoke to Marie, and I knew that I wanted to do it. It just took a little time from that point until the project actually happening. But when I came to LA to do chemistry reads and I met Lynn, she was the first person out of 5 amazing actresses. And I went to the waiting room. I introduced myself to Lynn. And when we did the scene, I was like, I want her to play it. But then again, her being the first one, you're like, no, you know, we are also going to see other people. But she was my first choice at the beginning. And by the time we were done, we all looked, I'm like, I want to do this with Lynn. So that's how it all started. And the journey from there was just, you know, it's like just unfolded in the most amazing way.
Pooya, on your character, Kris, you mentioned that the character's journey is in somewhat in relatable terms. How relatable is this character to you? Because obviously everyone has their own journey when it comes to this topic.
One of the things when a trans actor plays a trans character, a lot of people think, well, this must be your journey. I understand that journey because I've had something similar to it. Sense of doubt, sense of being lost, sense of feeling of shame, feeling that you're letting some people down and you have to choose between yourself and other people. I took my experiences, which had happened in a very different time in my life, and I had come to terms with it in a very different way. I took that, and then kind of like when Lynn and I went into these characters and we talked back as to how do these characters know each other? Like, what do we know about each other that each of us doesn't know about ourselves? And when we went into it, then we were able to take what we knew as individuals and as actors, and then we created the world where these two characters, Kris and Naomi, had kind of like in some ways evolved together. And then the time in between, now we're seeing them again many years later. And I feel that's how the character of Kris came, also because I knew that Marie had written it from somewhat of a personal point of view. So there would be days I would just be watching Marie and seeing how she talks or how she walks or how she addresses a particular point. And so I think it was really the combination of me and Marie and what Lynn and I found together, and that's where Kris came from.
Marie, I love the dialogue in this for your script here. Could you talk about crafting the dialogue? Is everything based on your experiences, or you actually had to fictionalize some things?
Oh, I definitely had Kristen, my co-writer, and I definitely fictionalized elements of the story. Certainly, it was actually kind of funny. After I think it was 3 days after we finished like the final draft, one of my exes actually did contact me. And she's like, "Hey, I'm coming into town. Would you like to go and grab dinner?" And I was like, and I was like, "No, it's fine. Everything was fine." And we had like a very wonderful, beautiful dinner. It was very friendly and great. But so it was definitely the opposite of what happens in See You Then in that way, in that respect. But I think that a lot of those feelings and emotions were sort of going. The themes of the story were sort of had roots in what I was going through at the time. And Kristen and I, she really loves to read the material back, and especially because it's so dialogue heavy, and I felt like that was not my strong suit when it came to writing. So we'd read the script back and forth to each other, and she said that she knew it was ready when I was reading the role of Kris, which I hate hearing my own voice. So it was like absolute torture for me. But I got so emotionally intense about it, I started like tearing up, and then I started like going off script and just yelling at her about things. And then she's like, I think it's ready now. I think like if you feel that engaged with it and you don't want to act worth anything in the world, like then we just need to give it to two extraordinarily talented actors and they could just run with it.
Pooya and Lynn, this is a sort of like conversational acting. How did you manage to pull it off? And was it hard to stick to the script and not try to improv because there's just so much conversational dialogue through this?
Well, I would like to say that I feel like I usually want to improv almost always. I'm always trying to add a button or something, like add my own flavor. But with this script, it was so natural and everything that was said made so much sense that there wasn't, I mean, like, I feel like we could have improved if we wanted. I don't think Mari would have been like, stop that. But in general, there was no, I didn't have the desire to improvise because it just felt so full already as written. Not that we didn't go off script sometimes, but.
I also feel it deserves to be said that we had a very special opportunity that you don't usually get in indie films, that we had a full week of rehearsal, which we did improv through that as we were doing the scenes, and we found you know, what the rhythm was, what needed to be added, what needed to be altered, what needed to be taken out. So we had already gone through that thing of like, well, what if the character said this? Or if they said this in this scene, well, why are they going to say it again in the other scene? So we had that opportunity that you don't usually get to do. And I think that was invaluable, that we got to do that before we even started shooting.
Wow, that explains the close chemistry between your two characters. That's quite excellent.
We spent a lot of time, and Lynn would tell you, even when they would yell cut, we would still be kind of like joined at the hip. What do you think about that thing? You know, that thing that we're going to say in the next scene or that. So we were kind of like, we were working together for the entire duration. There was no cutoff time. If Lynn would think of something, even after we had done shooting, I would get a text, you know, before I'm going to bed, Pooya, that thing that we're going to do tomorrow, well, you know, it's like, how do you think that goes? Or I would say, well, I think that this is, so we were connected. And I think it's because we knew that people are only going to care about these characters if they can feel their connection and their closeness, so that then they would care when there's pain happening. Because sometimes you watch a movie and the story wants you to care about the characters, but by the end of it, you're like, I don't know if I really care that they're not happy.
Mari, this being your directorial feature debut, how was that overall experience, and how great having great actors supporting you in this debut for you?
Well, it wouldn't be anything without them. And in regards to the improv and all that, I think what was really beautiful is it was less improv, just like the characters were just coming to life. Like Lynn in the bar scene, when they're getting a little punchier and they're more relaxed, and I mean that stuff was just like, that transcended what we had written, because it became this other thing where Lynn brought this beautiful, fun energy to it that like I hadn't even anticipated. I mean, that's the beauty of telling these stories and making these films and directing is it's not just a solo enterprise, and it's a group made, it's a film, a story made by committee, and all those elements are so important. I'm so fortunate in the fact that I had one of the most rewarding, amazing experiences as a first-time director. Not only working with these two amazing actors, but also like working with just a crew that was assembled from my my closest friends, my family. My cousin came out, my parents were there, like my friends, my roommates from college were our script supervisor and our DP. And so it just felt like being around family constantly, and it just made it into just the most rewarding 13 days of my life, then consequently followed by like the worst year pretty much for everybody in human existence. So, you know, I was very fortunate to have that experience just before COVID.
You know, one of the things that I loved about this is that it got very emotional very quickly in this film. So Pooya and Lynn, can you really cry on cue? Because that basically tell us about your acting skills.
when people talk about crying on cue, it's like people have this idea that you just stand there and somebody says cry and you cry. I don't know if I can do that because nobody's ever told me like, okay, Pooya, you're standing there now, cry. But the story was so rich and the connection was palpable. And by time that we were shooting and we got to those scenes, I think that how I felt towards Lynn and the whole company was, I felt so open and trusting, which allowed me to be more vulnerable than I would be in a different setting. And so in that sense, you know, the gravity of the situation definitely moved you towards that. So it became easy to feel those emotions and to show those emotions. But if I just stood there and somebody like just pointed at me and say, Pooya, now cry, I don't know. I don't know how good I would do in that situation.
Yeah, one of the first things I ever acted in was a Law and Order where I was supposed to cry on cue. And I'll never forget how the director was like, just do it like you did in the audition. Go. And I was like opposite Jesse Martin and Jerry Orbach. And they were like, you have to do the real acting today. And I just could not do it. It was my first time on a set. I felt so much pressure. Two like acting legends, you know, like I was just so intimidated. I couldn't do it. So I just did the whole fake thing. And for the second thing I ever did was another Law and Order. And this time the director like totally like he made everyone leave the set. Christopher Maloney and Mariska Hargitay came back and they were like improvising with me and they like got me to that place. And that's when I learned like this is about feeling safe. So I'm still in a situation where sometimes just like Pooya, if somebody's just like, please cry, I'm not one of those trick ponies that can just, you know, turn it on. But when the environment is so safe and you feel like you can really be vulnerable, not only with your partner, but also with everyone around you, that nobody's going to be standing around being like, oh my God, I want to go home, please cry. Then it comes easily. And so and that's the environment that Mari provided for us. And Pooya and I were able to get there with each other because we could see how vulnerable each other was. So it was like, well, if you're going to do that, I'm going to do that too.
Absolutely. And that's why this film is a South by Southwest movie. Well, hey, congratulations, ladies, for your film. It's been a pleasure speaking with you about this film, and too bad I can't talk to you personally at South by Southwest, but this is the next best thing right now. So
exactly. Well, thank you so much for having us. It's been such a pleasure.
Hey, thank you. Nice meeting you. Bye now.